Hello, everybody. So glad we were all able to talk about what's going on in our life. Uh, we are going to talk about how to eat, what to eat, and how to think about eating. Please feel free to interrupt with questions. And everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Okay. And so we did part one earlier. I'm going to quickly go through that to say that the best medicine, better than allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurveda, any form of medicine is food. Food is got insane intelligence, and your body is primed. It's designed to figure out what it needs to heal itself and have the lesson or the life force about it. And the second thing is healing begins. If you're not well, all healing begins in the gut. For all the people on this call, Sephora, are you still there? All the young people on this call, for any skin issues on the outside, for any skin issues on the inside, your gut lining, celiac or colitis or Crohn, all healing begins in your intestine. And that can only be achieved by food, never by medicine. And this guy Hippocrates said it 400 BC, and it's still true today. The second important point for our group in particular is to understand the importance of bacteria, viruses, fungi, prions. They are our friends. They are not our enemies. And accordingly, you want to welcome them into your life. You want bacteria in your life. You want virus, including pathogenic, guys. It's a good thing to have every kind of microbe in your body because they make all sorts of metabolites for you and possibly form about 80%, 85% of your immune system. We said just do it, and you guys are amazing and awesome. Everyone's been just doing it. That's the Nike symbol for just do it. And the key primary foods that we need to focus on are good water. Everyone has access to good water, whether it's spring water, whether it's water that you've extracted from a well, but it's got to be clean. It's got to be some pure, and try and find unfluoridated, unchlorinated water if you can, because there's no water that tastes as wonderful and is as good for you as good water. Lacto-fermented vegetables and foods, and everybody has eaten them, continues to eat them. They are critical for skin health, critical for any kind of autoimmune or chronic disease. Lacto-fermented vegetables. Saturated animal fats. Has everybody tossed out the liquid oils in their pantry?
Yes.
Excellent. Please, Western oil, soy oil, corn oil, vegetable or refined vegetable oils, ditch them. Stick to saturated animal fats and your health will greatly improve. The reason for that is they contain fat-soluble vitamins A, D, K, and E. Cold-pressed monounsaturated fats, which are in peanut oil, olive oil, sesame oil, are good, provided you get unadulterated oils. And most olive oils in the market today are adulterated, meaning canola oil with fake colors added or corn oil with color added. So rather than fall for that, if you don't know that your olive oil is good, ditch it. Eat butter. You can melt butter to put into your salads even. Tastes great. Everyone has access to good eggs, oysters, liver, meat, and bones, good pastured products, and bone broth. Everyone should be throwing a chicken or some bones into a big pot of water and taking that broth instead of straight water. It's God's food.
Sushma.
Yes.
A brief one. I use a pressure cooker for making my bone broth. Mm-hmm. When I've studied and read and so on, it's as effective and uses less energy as producing a big pot for days or hours or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm just offering that and asking for your comments as well on it.
Excellent. Any broth is better than no broth. And the pressure cooker broth, if it gets the bones soft and gets the minerals into the broth, it's excellent. Go for it.
Good. Thank you.
Folks, you need salt. Do not shun salt. Study after study says that if you shun salt, you actually die earlier. There's a reason your body craves salt. It's because you need it. You need salt, sodium chloride, to digest protein. The chloride of the sodium, it forms the hydrochloric acid in your stomach to help you digest protein. Without salt, you cannot digest proteins. You cannot digest carbs. Your brain requires salt. Your adrenals are salt hogs. So you need a lot of salt, but it has to be non-denatured or raw salt. That is to say, unrefined, good salt that you can grind up. So salt is critical for your cellular metabolism, as you know. You have salt on the outside and potassium on the inside of your cell. And that balance requires you to have both in great quantities. So salt and leafy green vegetables and broths are ideal to sustain your body. And especially if you have access to nothing but fluoridated and chlorinated water, please at least make broth out of it. At least add apple cider vinegar and lemon to it to get minerals and glycine and amino acids and other minerals to it, which will make it nutrient dense. And the key is, if you're eating this much food every day, to make it as high in minerals as possible. That's what the ancient people with great teeth did. They had 10 to 100 times more minerals in their food. And the way to do it is think about your morning and be realistic. You know, if in the morning you're just drinking a cup of a fluid, try and make it a broth. Try and make it a beet kvass. Try and make it a pressed green juice rather than just water, you know. Or if it's a tea, make tea with broth. It's absolutely delicious. It's called bakute. But get minerals in. The 11 principles, we discussed them last time. No refined foods, toss them out of your pantry. Come, let me help you do it. If you can't, I'll come to your kitchen and toss them out. I tag everything with a blue tape. You put it in a garbage bag and you donate it or you toss it. Pay for quality. A little bit of quality is worth way more than lots and lots of bad quality food. Eat animal foods. I encourage you to eat animal foods. I met a vegan the other day, and you know, just 7 years or 8 years of veganism will do a number on you, your children, your children's children. And so there was a reason ancient cultures stressed animal food. Even Indian cultures, which were vegetarian, valued the cow as a sacred animal, as a source of animal fats, animal proteins, etc. And
Sushma,
yeah,
there seems to be a lot of vegans and vegetarians in my circle of acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
They're all pretty much overweight.
Yes.
It's like, I'm like, oh, so what are you doing this for? You know, it's like they just don't even. I know that people want to save the planet. That's a different thing, but they could still go about it in a better way. And it's almost why. I mean, they're
Yeah, the value system is completely warped because they are misunderstanding information. We had 40 million bison when we did not have our plains denuded with soy fields and corn fields and wheat fields.
Yep.
And you could have eaten bison instead of making GMO corn. And what people don't recognize is in making these fake burgers and soy burgers, you're
all processed.
Yeah, it's all processed. You're taking out every insect, every animal on that square acre of farm.
And Maria, if I may add too, I found out that the Dalai Lama, the lamas and the gurus in India and China all eat meat.
Yes.
They're not vegan. You need meat to ground yourself.
Right.
So it's been a whole myth
Yep.
about what they are. They're not vegan.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. The Dalai Lama. Yeah.
Maria.
The Dalai Lama actually ate raw meat to recover from a deathly illness, the last one, and it's a way of life. Eating animal foods allows you to live, and the tragedy here is they're all doing it for spiritual and good reasons, and it's the very thing that makes you not grounded, as Narelle said, makes you not spiritual, makes you not in touch with yourself and your forebears and your future generations. So our girls in particular, about the age of 8, 10, 12, go through this. And that's a terrible age to be depriving yourself of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, K, and E. So please, if you see young girls, tell them. They're the ones that are gonna have children with crumbly teeth right out of the gate. These are the children that after their moms have eaten a vegan diet, then been vaccinated, the children are just destroyed. And the problem with vegan foods is there's not enough fat. So you're eating fruits, which are carbohydrates, you're eating grains, which are carbohydrates, and you're not eating very many fats other than coconut oil, which not a lot of people do. And you end up putting on weight. They're diabetic. By the time they're 20, 25, they're diabetic. When you get a diabetic, you get PCOS, meaning you become infertile, your thyroid gets suppressed, so a whole bunch of things happen. That's not to say you don't eat grains and seeds. You ferment them, you leaven them, and you want to make them part of your overall diet. And there are cultures that have subsisted and survived on these things, but they have a way of processing grains with bacteria, with leavenings. And what do bacteria do with these fibrous chains in our body? Can anyone guess what bacteria do in your gut when you eat this kind of vegetarian food? Fermented veg food? Take a guess.
I bet they die. They can't live in there if you don't have anything for it to feed it, right? Or
Yeah, but the bacteria, what the bacteria are doing in a fat deprived diet, the bacteria take those carbohydrates and convert them into fat. So but you have to have the leavening with that.
Yeah.
The short chain fatty acids. And so there are cultures that have managed to find ways around a high carbohydrate diet, but in our modern civilization, what's happening is a tragedy, big tragedy.
And Sushma, one more question. This gluten-free, it's full of sugar.
Exactly.
No one's talking about that. They're also, I'm gluten-free. Well, have you seen the sugar in the item you're eating?
Yes,
No,
gluten-free is carb loaded. Yes, a lot of. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So whatever you're trying to do, please make it with your own hands. Don't buy processed foods that say gluten this and dairy that and so on. Trust your judgment. Go to a farmer. Buy foods that you process with your own hands. If you do eat any of these things. The seventh principle is 30 to 80% of all calories that people got in the ancient times were from fats. And saturated fats in particular, and almost none from polyunsaturated fats. They are what cause atherosclerosis, rancidity in your body, fatty oxidative degeneration. So please, please, please toss out your oils. We never ate oils in our native cooking. They had equal amounts of omega-3s and omega-6 fats, and that's going to happen if you don't eat omega-6 laden liquid oils. All diets contained some form of salt, and it was precious, it was sacred. Those who lived in the mountains and could not get the salt from the sea that was rich in iodine were in danger of developing goiter. So they drank blood and urine of animals and milk and meat, which contained all the minerals they needed. And then use bones. Buy bones that are not from factory animals, which do not contain arsenic and other heavy metals, and then boil them, pressure cook them by all means, and drink your bone broth instead of water on cold days. And you can make kefirs and kanjis and master tonics on hot days, which are absolutely delicious. So I would say avoid, sugary things and go for the salted lacto-fermented beverages that are nutrient dense. And the last but not the least is to provide for future generations. Folks, Google is taking away from our search engines all alternative data, all vaccine damage data, drug damage data, homeopathy, acupuncture, So all the natural means of medicine are slowly being suppressed in favor of patented medicine. And the way around that is by educating our children. We have failed if we did not educate our children in the dangers that befall them that we learned over a lifetime. So you might not vaccinate your children or give them antibiotics and this and that, but your children, if your children don't know that, they're going to stumble into the same errors. So I think teaching children is super, super important.
Sushma, on your presentation slide or screen, I had it full scale, and number 11 was truncated in half. I put it to a smaller scale so I could see it, and number 11 has disappeared completely. I don't know if that's just on my computer or it's been reflected in others or from your transmission or what, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Oh my goodness. Everyone see number 11?
No, it's truncated. I only get half of it, Renee.
I can see it.
I can
So,
see it. I can see it.
Now I can see it.
Now you can see it. Okay, so that's that. But if I do this, then you cannot see it. Okay.
That's correct.
All right, but it's number 11 is provision for future generations. Okay. And everyone see this cholesterol molecule?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm here to tell you this is probably the most important molecule that you want to know about. It is a sterol that is very, very good for you. That is nature's medicine. And what do we think about cholesterol? Can anyone say what modern medicine thinks about cholesterol?
Modern medicine says it's bad and you have to use statins to reduce it and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, yes, it's public enemy number one. Cholesterol forms 40% of your cell membranes. 70% of your cholesterol is located in your brain. It is required. It has. If you look at this beautiful molecule, you will see that the red part here, the OH hydroxyl group, is water soluble, and the this methyl group here is fat soluble. That is a remarkable property of cholesterol that can have on one side of a membrane fatty substances, on the other watery substances. And that allows it to transport every kind of mineral, whether fat or water soluble, through these cholesterol pipes, if you will, or conduits in your body. The second you don't have cholesterol, you cannot make any of your hormones, no sex hormones, no renal hormones, no brain hormones, no estrogen, no estradiol, no growth hormones. Cholesterol is the mother of all molecules.
So why did they want us, my cholesterol's like 300 and they thought I was going to die. I said, I feel great since I started having the butter and everything you recommended. So what is considered a good cholesterol number?
Anything under 500 is a good number. And I'll tell you why. When your cholesterol was 300 to 500, your cholesterol was actually protecting you from getting sick and dying.
So I don't have to lower my cholesterol.
You don't have to lower it. No. What you have to figure out is, why is your cholesterol rising in response to inflammatory pressures? Do you have an infection? Is your body trying, because your body is going to make more stress hormones. It's going to make more cholesterol if it's trying to repair the wounds in your body. And if you take down that cholesterol, you will die. So cholesterol is the fireman at the fire. Cholesterol is not the fire.
As a part of the awareness of cholesterol, if we distinguish between HDL, LDL, triglycerides, and any other factors, are those indicators of something that could be infected or could be amiss in the body?
Yes.
And their levels?
Yeah. If you have very, very high LDL, sometimes it can indicate an infection, but not always. If you're on a ketogenic diet, your LDL does go very high, but it depends on whether it's the large fluffy or the small dense. Typically for people on ketogenic diets, the large fluffy LDL is high, and that is not a problem. The low, hard, dense cholesterol LDL means there may be a problem. So you need to be discriminating and not panic, or let your doctor panic if you have high cholesterol, because it is a very, very, very good thing in and of itself. And if it is different than normal cholesterol, what you want to look at is the other reasons, not cholesterol itself.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, if you follow me. And cholesterol is rich in which foods, guys? Anyone take a guess?
Fatty meats.
Yep. It's an animal compound, animal molecule. And one of the reasons it was made an enemy was the McGovern government back then. Someone was vegetarian and they said, oh, let's get, demonize all animal fats. And what's in animal fats? Oh, cholesterol is an animal fat. So it's public enemy number one. After 40 years in the Framingham study, they discovered, or they found out, that people who had the highest cholesterol levels were the most active, the physically fit, least ill, lived the longest, whereas the people with the low cholesterol levels got more infections, got more cancers, died earlier, had anxiety, depression, violent behavior, more car accidents, lack of judgment, mental illness. So eat your cholesterol. Egg yolks, salmon roe, ikura, caviar, rich sources, butter, ghee. So cholesterol is very good for you, as are saturated fats. You have our permission, my permission. Don't pay heed to your doctors, guys. Eat saturated fats and enjoy good health. I cannot tell you how difficult it has been for me to convince people in my life, people who are my clients, to take a habit of 20, 30, 40 years, these phobias where you go, oh my God, if I eat butter, I'll die. And whereas your body loves it, your body desperately wants to put in a half inch of this gooey butter on something and eat it. And you've been told by your dietitian that butter is bad. Forget that. Your body knows what's best for it in most cases. All right, why am I showing this? Not because I have dogs and I love dogs, but because what you don't do is just as important as what you do. We panic. We get talked into things by people. We get pressured by our doctors. We get pressured by our workplaces, our next door neighbor. We get pressured by obligation. You can't see my grandchildren if you don't, your grandchildren if you don't do this. You cannot come to work if you don't do this. You cannot have your dog get Lyme disease or from ticks, because the ticks could be transferred to humans. So I wanted to give you an example of how flea and tick medicines work. There are these tick medicines that people who love their pets, love their animals, are crunchy moms, eat organic, and they're giving their dogs tick medicines to protect the dog and protect the people around them. Well, the dog's eating these chewable things containing basically pesticides. These pesticides get concentrated in the dog's tissues. That means the skin as well. So they're coming out of the skin and the dander of the pet and the hair. The isozolines enter the bloodstream and flow throughout the body. So now they have gone to the entire body of your dog. And now when the fleas or ticks bite your dog, they get poisoned, they get paralyzed, and they die. Do they stop biting the dog? No. When they bite the dog, their injected stuff, their injected excreta goes into the dog, and it could be spirochetes, it could be Lyme, it could be other bacteria, it could be other pathogens that have gone inside the dog. Okay, the ticks may have fallen off. Now the dog has Lyme disease as well as pesticides in their body. Your children are going to pet the dog. Your dog's going to sit in bed with you, and you're going to have access to all, you're going to absorb these pesticides from the dog's skin, and lo and behold, entire families get sickened, neuralgias, seizures, tetanies, foaming at the mouth, Lyme disease, all. So it's a circle of life. If you poison the very things that you love, you're going to poison yourselves. And what you don't want to do while you're eating all this wonderful food is to poison yourself with things that are bad for your pets, bad for your garden, bad for your environment, and bad for you. That's all I wanted to say with this dog picture. Our dogs started out with tick collars, Bravecta, heartworm medicine, multiple vaccines, fungal. They had severe allergies and skin itching to the point where Our dog's ears were running. There was white stuff coming out of her ears. So she had antifungals and antibiotics. And when we inherited the dogs, we changed their diet from kibble to raw virtually overnight. We took them off every single chemical that they were on. And the transformation in these old dogs, 11 and 13, was dramatic. They can run for miles. They can run like the wind. Their bowel movements are good. They sleep well. One of them was seizing. She was very aggressive and bit other dogs. She became a loving creature. And that's what happens when you just take harmful things away. It's not enough to give good stuff. You also need to take away the bad stuff. And our children are vaccinated up to their eyeballs. At the drop of a hat, we have given out antibiotics. We need to take our health back. And that is why, folks, I would propose homeopathy with good, clean food and water. And literally, those are the only three things you need in life to have good lifespan. There was the animal shelter here in Sebastopol where cats lived to 36 years old. Old cats that had come into the hospice with cancer, etc. Their cancers fell off. They lived and lived and lived because they did not put toxins and poisons into their body. And they put in good food and had homeopathy anytime they were sick. So I highly recommend everybody go get a homeopathic kit, or at least have a few remedies, or at least have arnica on hand. One thing, arnica, do it. Or if you get diarrhea, get veratrum album or podophyllum. Or if you get migraines, get iris vesicolor. Try it and see what happens. You don't have to take valerian and all these painkillers and anesthetic type of doping drugs and so on. Which are very harmful. Questions? And speaking of foods to avoid, you want to avoid all polyunsaturated fatty acids. That's liquid oils. All improperly prepared grains. That's pretty much every bread in the marketplace. Not well cooked. All the pastas, the hard pastas, all the stuff you get in the market. Make your own grains if you want, lacto-ferment them 2, 3, 4 nights if you're sensitive or allergic, and that'll take away the bad stuff. That'll take away the phytates and lectins. White sugar, white flour, high fructose corn syrup, additives of any sort. So I know you're reading labels and all that, but vitamins fall into that category. A lot of people think, oh, just for insurance, I'll take vitamins, but vitamins actually can be deadly. A lot of them, in fact, all of them that I know of, 99.9% of them are made from synthetic sources. A lot of industrial garbage goes into them. There's dyes, there's fillers and additives and stabilizers. They're made all over the world, in China and so on. And you don't know the history of where they're coming from, the food chain history. Whereas if you buy butter from your local farmer, you know exactly what's going into that soil and what's coming out, more or less. More difficult to fake. Avoid all processed industrial foods, natural flavors. The word natural flavors is code word for all sorts of flavor enhancers that are carcinogenic and neurotoxic. Your water might contain fluoride, lead, PCPs, PCBs, so please make sure your water is clean. These are the foods to avoid. How are we doing for time? We're doing good for time. And the 7 toxicities. We're going to stop here after we've talked about spiritual and carry on in part 3. But the 7 toxicities are heavy metals, and you get heavy metals through your water, through the air, through your lungs, on your skin, through your makeup, through your vaccines, and there's nothing as deadly as these metals. Mercury, cadmium, nickel, even iron, very toxic in its straight open form. Persistent organic pollutants and chemicals, Roundup, herbicides, pesticides, enhancers, petrochemical enhancers, Miracle Grow. All of these are persistent organic pollutants and chemicals you don't want in your life. Opportunistic infections. Sometimes when you get rid of the heavy metals, you get rid of the opportunistic infections. You get rid of the EMF, you get rid of the infections. So think of oftentimes opportunistic infections as things that are actually good for you, and the cleanup crew that's cleaning away the toxicity that's being formed in your body continuously. So if you have an infection, consider the fact that you might have toxicity of a chemical nature. And then emotional and psychological toxicity. This is a much bigger topic, and everybody kind of needs to arrive at this themselves. But I would say the biggest thing is forgiving. Forgive, 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 let it go. Because if you don't forgive, you're harming yourself more than anything or anybody else. The other person has long forgotten the grievance. You're just still carrying it like a stab wound in your heart. Don't let it go. Let it go, let them go. They will meet their karma. You need to move on with your life.
Sushma, a question about the first item, heavy metals. I've been using cast iron cooking ware for years, and I want to know if you have any comment or awareness about that.
That's a very good point. For many men who have iron overload, I would recommend don't cook in cast iron pots. Men in particular. For women who have menstruation, I would recommend cook in cast iron pots. If you don't have other sources of iron, cast iron pots, because you have fats coming onto those pots, and it'll absorb, the food will absorb the iron in a way that is more assimilable. So it's a good source of iron, but you don't want to put acids into your cast iron pot, because that'll get raw iron into your body, and that's very toxic. So there's a way to cook with cast iron pans. And that having been said, if you have iron overload, and there's diseases of iron overload that are very specific, I would say donate blood and don't use cast iron pots. Very good question.
Thank you.
There are women who have been rendered anemic from having heavy duty periods. Cook in cast iron pots with oils, but do not expose it to acids, please. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a question. It's actually a few slides ago, but it had to do with salt. I'm aware of sodium chloride. I also, when I do a fast, I think it was based on something you said some time ago on potassium chloride. I want to know if you can say anything about that, when it's good to use or not to use.
It's great when you're doing fasting, you're getting sodium and potassium, some salt and potassium, so that you have mineral balance, electrolyte balance. You can also put in apple cider vinegar, which is pressed apples fermented. So it's hugely loaded with minerals, good minerals. And the unseasoned, with the unrefined salt that you take has 80 trace minerals. You need them in trace amounts. And if you don't have them, your health becomes really destroyed, impaired. And so the salt is very key. Good salt is very key in your digestion.
Is it appropriate to use potassium and sodium chloride in combination, or is one, especially fasting?
Yes. It's appropriate to use both, especially if you're new to fasting.
Sushma, is there a salt that you recommend?
I recommend Redmond, Celtic salt, and any other sort of large body of salt, dehydrated salt that you can find. Go shoot for a Balinese salt is good. There's a salt flat in South America, which has amazing tasting salt. Pacific salt is very good. Wherever you can find clean salt that's unrefined is good.
Where can you find sodium? Potassium?
Potassium chloride, food grade, Morton's on Amazon for like 10 bucks a pound or something.
Morton's, okay.
You have a suggestion about the quantity? I know you said this some time ago, but I can't remember.
In about a quart, put in a quarter teaspoon of potassium chloride, the salt.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. One more question.
Right. People are talking about borax.
Mhm.
What is this for? What?
Bone health. It's an excellent thing for bone health. Take, the cleaning detergent, take a little bit of borax, tiny amount, and throw that into your drinking water.
And it's good for your bones.
Well, good for your bones. It's awesome for your bones. A bunch of other things. You need it in very trace amounts. So just a tiny bit will do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And none of this stuff costs a lot, guys. Raw salt can be had for virtually no, very small cost. You can get a lot of this food from your farmers, and it tastes awesome. Once you start eating fatty foods, you will love them. Vegetables that children hate will taste absolutely marvelous when they're slathered in butter. But the main thing is to avoid the toxicity. So it's like this in life. You can jump over 10-foot hurdles or you can jump over 1-foot hurdles. You want your hurdles to be 1 foot and the fun times to be, miles and miles long. And to do that, I mean, even one bad move can destroy a child's life for years afterwards. So think about foreign things that you put into your body or your child's body long and hard before you do it. Could be anything. Ingested, injected, applied, makeup. Makeup is toxic, toxic, toxic. You don't need makeup. You need Marlene's beautiful, Marlene, what do you make? It's that beautiful oil that she makes infused with lavender and this and that. That's what you need for makeup. You need things you can eat. You don't need toothpaste. You can mix coconut oil and charcoal powder or baking soda and use that for your teeth. You don't need toxicity in your life. And so add to that good food in a spiritual practice. Everybody has a spiritual practice, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. What brings that spark of joy to you? I can't see you, but please, one by one, go around the room and tell me what has brought joy to your spirit in your life.
Nature.
Nature, yes, yes.
Putting my hands,
Meditation.
soil,
Meditation. What else was the next thing?
putting my hands in the soil and gardening.
Oh yeah, putting your hands in the soil and gardening
Definitely.
Not with gloves, but with my hands.
with your bare hands. Yes, nothing as wonderful to be in touch with nature.
Traditional.
I like hugging people.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All of the above, plus I've recently started to study Hawaiian spirituality, which the forgiveness part that you spoke about is extremely vital. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yes, it's so healing. It's so healing to forgive, to hug, stick your hands in dirt. What else?
Traditional Chinese medicine, which is a simple term, but includes a large, large range of things: physical, spiritual, emotional, nutritional, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm even though I've been doing it for many, many years, I still consider myself a beginning student.
Yes, yes, so true. Every traditional form of medicine has this inextricable link between your body, mind, and spirit, except for allopathy. Your spirit is,
Yes.
Allopathy,
yeah, your
doctors.
it is part of
Hospital.
your life. Yes. Margaret, what brings you joy to your spirit?
Excuse me?
What brings joy to your spirit?
Being with my family and getting lots of hugs
Yes.
and having a good meal with those I love.
Oh,
Walking with friends,
yes.
talking. Yes.
Oh,
Just contact.
contact. So wonderful. So wonderful.
Mhm.
Renee, gotta speak up, my darling.
You stole the Margaret. I was going to say family. I'm fortunate to have a very large family that has always been very close, and to have a daughter who's willing to have Christmas and holiday parties, even if her house is dirty, for 40 to 55 people. She's a gem. and her husband feels the same way. He has family that is very dysfunctional, so he absolutely appreciates all my family,
Mhm.
and I do too.
Oh,
It's wonderful to feel that everybody gets along, nobody's fighting, nobody's angry at each other. It's a nice feeling.
yeah. And you know who the real gem in your family is? You.
No. I'd say it was my mother, because my mother always kept touch with all of us. We all knew what everybody else was doing. Nobody was jealous.
Mhm.
It clinged us together, and that's what's kept us going.
Mhm.
I wanted to add something which has been very, very significant for me. It started several years ago when I was on a trip with my daughter Mirabai to, we visited Haleakala in Hawaii.
Mhm.
And it's actually been featured on a video. It's called The Quietest Place on Earth.
Mhm.
We just noticed when we were sitting there at a certain time, there were no birds, there were no singing, nothing. And it was absolutely still, except for some tourists who were chattering among themselves, and they stopped and went away.
Mhm.
But I realized that the idea or the space of quiet gives me such joy. And when I can allow that to happen in my daily life, it's very, very joyful and satisfying for me.
And also, I think above all, having God in your life, or
Oh,
whoever is God
Yes.
for you.
yes. Everyone needs one. Everyone needs one.
Mhm.
Also, I love when I can have a meal and I can look at my food after preparing it. I can look at it. I can smell it. I taste every bite. I chew every bite consciously.
Oh,
I mean, nothing like eating a meal that you're in love with.
yes.
And yeah,
So true. So true.
I'm
I love
also,
the food.
I'm at a point of also appreciating everyone who contributed to that meal, from the growers, the harvesters, the packers, the whole deal. I do realize it really takes a village. And I just think it's sad how kids today need something. They go to a shop or they go on Amazon. They
Mhm.
don't know what it's like to actually grow from. I grew all my children's food in Australia from seed. And what I didn't have, my neighbors had. So we were doing farmers market before farmers market existed. And I just miss those days. Even
Oh.
hanging washing on the line. And that sounds corny, but the vitamin D, the smell of the fresh sheets with the sun on them was beautiful,
Oh,
you know?
Definitely. Yeah,
oh,
that's worth everything,
yes,
to hang your clothes on the line.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marlene, what brings you joy?
I'm sorry?
What brings you joy to your spirit?
The ocean, being to the ocean and the quietness.
Oh, yes.
I just feel like sometimes I feel like something's wrong with me. Like I need quiet. And if a lot of time goes by, week, 2 weeks, and I don't get that quiet time, I'm off balance. I need to go back and be quiet, because that's where I hear the most, in silence.
Yes.
Otherwise it's too noisy, it's too busy. I can't think. I get lost. I feel like my soul is lost.
Yeah.
So the quiet thing is important. And the ocean, my favorite place to be. So I get my water and I go ground and I get quiet up there.
Not at all.
Wow. Wow. Maria, what brings you joy, my dear?
Well, like I said, I like hugging. So I guess my mother and I are very similar. And I can vouch for Renee, because I grew up with Heidi, her daughter. So I just feel blessed that I've been exposed to a variety, and I'm staying open and just letting people be who they are, and then just kind of let them know how they're being, either good or bad, and point it out to them, because that's who I'm surrounded with. So I only want the people around me to be happy also. So I try to bring out the good in everybody.
So true. We are all linked. One
Yeah.
is unhappy, the other has to be. Yes.
Yeah.
So true. So true. Terry, what brings you joy?
When I go out in my front yard in the night and I hear the birds singing, they're so beautiful. And then when I receive answers to my prayers and feel answers come, from God.
Mhm.
And also when I'm with my grandchildren.
Oh. Yes, yes, same, yes. Who did I leave? Isabel. Oh, Isabel's gone maybe. All right, okay.
Sushma, what about you?
All of those. In the night after dinner, I'll go out, I'll look at the Milky Way, and it brings me so much happiness. I just stand there, the fog swirling in, rolling in, and I'll take a blanket on my shoulders and walk with the dog, hugging my grandson, my family, you guys, cooking up food and, you know, touching it with all my senses. It's such a joy, such a joy. Yeah. And
And
if you don't have that, you just get sick.
Maybe. Also, someone spoke about forgiveness, and the thing is, one important person to forgive is yourself.
Yes,
Mhm.
very good.
Right.
Don't go around life feeling guilty all the time. Right? Done the best you can. Done pretty good. All right. On that note, I'm gonna stop recording, and then we can move on to the last bit of our meeting. Thank you, everybody. That was great.